On today's show, the Dallas Mavericks fall to the Oklahoma City Thunder without SGA. The game after losing to the Orlando Magic without Jonathan Isaac and Markelle Fultz and whoever else you want to put on their team. What happened? What happened to this Dallas Mavericks team? And is it a wake-up call for this team in the front office? We'll talk about that on today's Locked On Mavs.
I'm Luka Doncic, and this is Locked On Mavericks podcast.
Hey, Dallas Mavericks are NBA champions. Bang! Bang! It's good!
And the Mavericks have won the game!
If you don't believe, you shouldn't be here.
And welcome. You are locked on to the Dallas Mavericks. My name is Nick Angstadt, media member and NBA channel manager for the Locked On Podcast Network. Thanks for making Locked On Mavs your first listen every single day, even after a loss. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube, where you can subscribe, help us get to 10K. We're trying to get to 10,000 subscribers. And joining me, as always, my co-host, contributor, writer at Mavs.com. He should have drove it, dude. The One More Thing King. What you got for me, Isaac Harris?
Well, first off, if you're in Dallas, you're in Texas, be safe. Yeah, be safe out there. Today, as you know, we're recording this Wednesday night. Hopefully, I didn't go to the game tonight because of the weather and everything. And so hopefully everybody got home safe. If you went to the game, stay safe on Thursday. A lot of things, shutting down across the city for the next day or so with ice and snow, and people lost power already. So, little deja vu action from a year ago, but at least we have the Mavs to warm us up.
We do have a lot to talk about with the Mavs, though. We may not have a good game. We may not have a good feeling talking about the Mavs tonight, but we do have a lot to get into. We have now this Mavericks team. They're without Kristaps Porzingis. They're without Tim Hardaway Jr. Sure, put those up there as excuses, reasons, whatever you want to call them.
It's not an excuse. They should have won this game.
There you go. So don't call them excuses. They were without those guys. But this Mavericks team is playing against the two worst teams in the NBA probably over these last two games. They win these two games, and we're recording this during the Jazz game, but if the Jazz lose the Nuggets, they would be in fourth place. The Mavs didn't win those two games. I thought it was a shoo-in. I looked at the schedule and said, oh, dang, look at this Mavericks schedule now. The Mavs all of a sudden have this really light schedule coming up, and I need to stop doing that. We need to stop doing that, saying
this is why you don't do schedules, wins and
this is why you don't do schedule predictions for sure. But the Mavericks, they beat the Grizzlies, and they beat the Grizzlies twice, and we're like, okay, those are really good wins. They beat the Warriors. They had beat the Bulls. We felt really good about a couple wins there. They went on that winning streak. Their defense was playing really well. And then all of a sudden, say, okay, Portland, Indiana, Orlando, OKC. That's a really easy schedule coming up. Okay, you know who else does that? The Dallas Mavericks players. They say, hey, this is an easy schedule coming up.
We need a break.
And they're looking forward to the All-Star break in a couple weeks, and looking forward to, all right, we got this. We can just coast and win this game. Our defense will carry us. You know what doesn't happen when you think your defense will carry you? Defense. Defense does not happen when you just expect it to come and expect it to happen. To me, these last two games, especially this Thunder game, are what I would call a leadership loss, right? It comes down to leadership on the floor, leadership from the bench, leadership everywhere. This Mavericks team doesn't have a lot of vets. They're like a weird older team, but not experienced team. So, some people say, well, they're not a young team. Okay, well, if you don't want to call them a young team, they're not an old experienced team either. They're like a weird middle of the pack inexperienced team. They don't have vets on this team. You look at, we can't use the Lakers. They have the most vets, but they're
no, that's not a good example.
You look at the Warriors. I mean, just look at that Warriors team. They have all these young guys, but they also have Curry and Draymond and Clay. Those are their vets. Those are invaluable guys. You look at the Heat. I think the Heat is probably the best example. You got Butler, but you also have Haslam as like the JJ Barea holding it down. You have Kyle Lowry. You have PJ Tucker. Like, there's just veterans all over the place on that team.
Yeah.
And you don't lose games like this. You don't lose games where you should beat the other team. You don't take them for granted and come back and get completely out-rebounded, and Luka plays his worst defensive game, according to him, of his entire season. And, all of that. I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why the Mavericks lost this game. All of them are correct, but I think this one is the most correct, and it was a leadership loss to me.
Yeah, I think everybody deserves blame in this, right? Like, Luka deserves blame in this. We'll get into Luka's game. Jason Kidd, coaching staff, deserves blame for this.
Yep.
Front office deserves blame for this. And as far as the construction, like you said, like it's these type of 2 games that you look at and you say, yeah, this is where Andre Iguodala in the locker room would have helped this team. This is where, like, if Chris Paul's on this team, do they lose both of these last 2 games? No, probably
We've seen Chris Paul beat the Mavericks in games like this, where it comes down to the end, the team doesn't look good the whole time, and then he just takes over in the fourth quarter, or helps, or pushes Booker, or pushes Bridges, or pushes somebody else to beat him in the fourth quarter. Like the Mavs have lost to these types of games before against the Suns.
Yeah, so we're not saying is, hey, this is a young team, inexperienced. Like, we're not saying that, because it's not a young team. But they do lack even the end of the bench type of guys, of the JJ Barea. The whole conversation we had last year about when they cut Barea in training camp, his career is done, and it's like, man, we low key missed Barea on the bench. We were kind of in that corner all season long of that. So I think they definitely missed a leader on the court and a leader in the rotation on the bench and everything. But I think you just look across the board tonight, and this is it's kind of what you said in the cold open. I think you look at the past 2 weeks and you look how well the Mavericks have been playing, and the defense, and everybody's talking about, national pods start talking about, media. Oh man, look at the Mavs, they're creeping up,
fourth ranked defense.
Yeah, all this stuff. And then we were all having, all the Mavs content Twitter and everything is like, all right, well, are they playing so good that they're not going to make a trade before the deadline? Do they just stand pat and all this stuff? Well, if you've been in the camp that, hey, Dallas needs to make a trade, then you're very happy over these last 2 games, because, I think this could be a wake up call, because if the Mavericks were sitting back saying, man, this team solid, I think we have everything. I think you look at these last 2 games, the team that's coming to town on Friday night, Philly, then you turn back around on Sunday and play Atlanta. Like, you could very well go 0-4 over these 4 games at home. This is a 6-game homestand here. So that's, talking about, the only positive out of all of this is at least this is happening now. Instead of, can you imagine this happening? Can you imagine them standing pat and then this happening the week right after the deadline? And you're like,
yeah, right.
What is going on? So at least this happens now, to where if they were kind of on the fence, this could give them a little bit of a alarm going off of, okay, let's really entertain out there what is out there.
Yeah, we'll talk about that a little bit more in the third segment. Coming up, I do want to talk about how the Mavericks lost this game. You can't just say leadership and that was it. Luka had 46 and 10 in this game, hit 5 threes, shot 38% from 3. He only had 3 turnovers. Like, how do you lose?
What did you say? 40?
Luka had 40 points.
Oh, I thought you said 46 and 10.
46 46 rebounds, 10 assists.
Am I reading this?
3 turnovers, 3 steals for him too. You also had Bullock off the bench with 5 boards, with 5 threes, 23 points, 20 points for Brunson. Like, how do you lose a game when you get that kind of production? We'll talk about that coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. As football continues its march through the playoffs, right to the big game, the big Who-Day game. BetOnline.net remains the best spot for all your sports scores and news this offseason, especially when it comes to those lines. There's all kinds of lines. They have all kinds of fun props and stuff for the Super Bowl, for the big games. Go check it all out. It's not just football. BetOnline has up-to-the-minute info on pro and college hoops, NHL, boxing, UFC, along with live real-time updates of current games. So don't wait to take advantage of all the new amazing offers available for the 2022 season. Go check it out. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Isaac Harris. Let's talk about this game. Let's break down this game a little bit more, because like I said, Luka had 40 points, 6 boards, 10 assists, only 3 turnovers, hit 5 threes. Like, when does Luka hit 5 threes in a game where the Mavs lose? It was a very strange game. You also got 20 points from Brunson, 23 points from Bullock with 8 boards as well for him. How did the Mavs lose this game? What's the biggest thing for you?
Oh, defense. Where's the Mavs defense that we've been watching over the past month or so? I mean, that's what, especially when you look at, I mean, I quoted after everybody saw the quote after the game of Luka's quote. And I thought it was a special quote because it wasn't the generic, this game's on me. We've heard that a million times, but he was very specific with where he lacked in this game with his defense.
And Luka said, by far, my worst defensive game of the year.
Yeah.
It's on me. That's like as specific and as pretty self-aware, right? He allowed the basket that, pushed it to overtime. If he would have stopped Kendrick Williams on that layup, the Mavs may not even go to overtime and win this game. We're having a different conversation probably. But yeah, it was more than that, right? All those stats I said about Luka earlier. He's a minus 17 for the game. That just doesn't happen on accident. Everybody else, the bench is essentially positive. Marquise Chris was minus, but Dorian was minus 13. But look at the rest of the starters. Maxey was a +0. Brunson and Bullock were +3. Josh Green was a +2. Like everybody else is kind of in that even range, and Luka was a minus 17. That doesn't happen on accident. That means the minutes Luka is out there, the team was not necessarily playing well. He was scoring and he was out there. But guess who else was scoring? The Thunder. And you got them rolling. You got Lou Dort out there with 30 points, hitting hitting 6 threes. Trey Mann hitting 29 points. I think that was a career high for him. They just allowed them to score a lot. And hey, we've been super hard on Kristaps Porzingis. We've talked about how, the Mavs need a better second option, all that kind of stuff. They missed his rim protection real bad in this game. You look, and I mean, the Thunder only had 48 points in the paint, and the Mavs had 54. But I think Porzingis changes, the rim protection thing a lot. When you just throw, Maxey out there and he has to switch out on all these different wings and stuff, he's not around the basket. And then you also have, Dwight Powell playing just his 12 minutes, Marquise Chris playing 14 minutes. It basically was just Maxey being the lone big. And he's a decent rim protector, but he's not an intimidating rim protector. Guys are still going to go at him. And when he's getting pulled all the way out to the 3-point line, he's not a rim protector at all. He basically got schemed out of being a rim protector in this situation. And so I think the Mavs missed Porzingis in this situation. Because remember last game against the Thunder? I was there. I think you were there. KP was just blocking a bunch of stuff in the paint. And that changes a lot of stuff. That changes a lot.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the rotation tonight. Dorian, Maxey, Luka, and Brunson all played over 42 minutes.
Playoff game.
Yeah, Reggie, played 38 minutes off the bench. So then you're looking at that Dwight 12-minute mark, or Marquise Chris 14 minutes. Like it was kind of a weird rotation, but when you're missing Tim and KP, it's kind of what. And OKC obviously doesn't have. A lot of these bigs, Baisley out there, he's like 6'9", 6'10", but he plays on a wing a lot. He's a very fluid athlete. So, to go back, I don't want to harp on Luka too much because they're not even in this game without Luka's 14 points and 10 assists and all of that. And he had, good offensive game, 16 of 33, 33 shots from Luka tonight. Feels like an Iverson game, but his defense though, really lacked. He owned it. He said it
at Mutombo though, so
he said it after the game. But I texted you at the end of the fourth. I was like, man, Luka's getting cooked on defense. And
he admitted
it. He did, and it's at the beginning of overtime too. Is like sequence after sequence. I don't know if he was tired at the end of the game. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't just the Kendrick Williams backdoor cut. Incredible pass by Josh Giddey. Like,
yeah, it was.
I rewound it and watched that thing like a few times. I'm like, he knew it. You could see there was a moment when the camera was on him into where he was about to take the ball out of bounds, and he's in the split second, he saw it with his eyes. And you're like, when you go back and watch, you're like, oh, he saw it right there. He knew it right before he inbounded the ball. But to start overtime, what happened to start overtime? Kendrick Williams blows right past Luka. Lou Dort step back on Luka. It turned into a Lou Dort show, but there was a few times they targeted Luka, and Lou Dort just got the best of him off when he had the ball. Like, not just Lou Dort is literally like a tank. All right.
Yeah, he is.
He's a fun player. He'd be a really fun. Is he what Marcus Smart thinks he is? Or
was at Oklahoma State?
Or what? I like Marcus Smart.
To me, and maybe this is just I have Aaron Donald on the head, but he reminds me of Aaron Donald, where he just F's up a game, right? He just messes it up and gets in there defensively, and he can almost just change a possession, just one player defensively. And then he put up 30 points as well.
Oh, I did not expect overtime for OKC to just say, "Hey, Lou Dort, it's your time. Josh Giddey, you're not even gonna really handle the ball. Just Lou Dort, go take." There was that play where he was guarding Brunson there. It might have been overtime. It was at least the fourth quarter. And he just like bodied Brunson as Brunson drove to the rim, and then he just swatted it out of bounds, and Brunson fell down. I'm like, oof, like that's the Lou Dort experience right there. But no, Luka's defense, he owned it after the game. It's, when you look at all the reasons and everything they lost the game, it definitely played into it. But offensively tonight, he was, insane.
Yeah, and that was it. I mean, the defense was bad, giving up 120 points to this Thunder team. It's on everybody, right? The Mavs defense, I thought in the first half was not great. Then they put in Josh Green and Ntilikina, and it felt like it stepped up a little bit. And I said, "Ooh, that's not a good sign." Right? If you put in the fresh legs, and those are the guys that really step up the defense, it's usually not a good sign, especially for the starters.
Yeah, I mean, the Mavs they hit 14 threes tonight, 32% from three, but 10 of those threes came from Luka and Reggie. So when you go across the board to the other guys and you say, okay, they were 3 of 15 as far as Brunson, Maxey, and Dorian, or 3 of 15 from three. Like you can't, you just can't have that. Maxey missing 4 threes, Dorian missing 4 threes, JB missing all 4 of his threes. And, I know JB put up 20 points in this game, but this is another one of those games where you almost want a little bit more, right? Like you almost have to. It's not, you're not looking at the offense. They put up 114 points in this game. You should beat OKC. The main reason is the defense. But it's another one of those things where, all right, you might need a little bit extra. If Luka's going to put up 40, you might need somebody to hit that 25, 27 mark.
Well, and 5 fouls from Brunson and six turnovers, right? Both things that we're not used to in a normal, Brunson had 20 points and what did he have? We finished with 4 assists. Oh, it's a really good production of Brunson game. But it's not normal of a Brunson game to have that many turnovers and also foul that much. And not get to the free throw line at all. So, and miss all 4 of his threes. Like there's a lot of stuff in there that can be better. Is that my point? I think they could have been better. Hey,
Josh Green could have been better tonight too.
Josh Green?
Yeah, I just thought it was, if you're in the, Josh Green got snubbed for Rising Stars game crowd, I would not.
I don't know if many people are there.
I would not use this game to prove your point.
I thought this team at some points looked listless too. It looked like they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into. And sometimes that happens with teams where they're like, okay, they're missing, they're missing Gilgeous, they're missing SGA, and they're missing Jeremiah Robinson Earl, the guys we've seen before. They're missing, a couple different guys. Okay, well, there's just new guys out there, and we don't really know what to expect. We haven't really seen film on them a lot, but
have they seen film on Kendrick Williams? He played down the street at TCU, so I don't know if they've seen film on him before. Brand new player. I don't know if they could really scout it.
They just didn't look ready. They didn't look ready. They didn't look in. That's why I go. They didn't want it. They didn't want it. It comes back down to leadership. What we said in the first segment.
Yeah, Jason Kidd said it after the game. He said, they played harder. Basically, they wanted it more than Dallas tonight, and they did. And that's it. Chuck Cooperstein had a tweet after the game, and this is what will stick on the back of your brains of we have these games every year. And it was the Hawks game or the Knicks games that people held on to 2 years ago and say, oh my gosh, we beat the Knicks in that one game. These 2 games will be the games at the end of the year. And this is what Chuck tweeted out, that if they're sitting there fighting for the 4 seed to have home court advantage and they miss out on about 1 or 2 games, we're going to look back and say, dang it. You remember that Orlando OKC stretch at home?
Remember last year, the Thunder game where the Mavs didn't have Luka and KP and they lost to the Thunder with nobody.
So I think, we could look back on this here in a few months.
Coming up, let's get into, will this wake up this team? Will it wake up the front office? Will it wake up the organization? What needs to change? What can the Mavericks do? We'll talk about all those things coming up. But before we do, let me tell you about RockAuto.com. Save time and money using RockAuto.com. It's a family business serving do-it-yourselfers for over 20 years. If you want the best prices and the best availability of parts for your car or truck, check out RockAuto.com. They have everything you can need. Brake parts, tail lamps, motor oil, even new carpet for your car. My dog took a dump on my carpet in my office, and I need to replace it. If your dog takes a dump on your carpet in your car, you can replace it at rockauto.com. Go explore their easy-to-use website today. Find the solution for your auto part needs. Again, that's rockauto.com. See all the parts available they have for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in there. How did you hear about us box? So they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. rockauto.com. All right, Isaac Harris. We wondered if this was going to be a wake-up call for the Mavericks because it felt like they're winning. They went on a 6-game win streak, then they went on a 4-game win streak. You know, those 2 streaks together, right? It's what, 11 wins or 10 wins in 11 games. That to me felt like the moment where the front office said, "All right, this is what the team is. We feel good about our squad. We don't have to make a move." That sort of solidified it to them. But to these 2 losses back to back, is the front office and Cuban and all them just going to look at this and be like, "Oh, well, we were missing"? Are they going to throw out all the excuses and say, "Well, we were without Porzingis, we were without Tim Hardaway Jr., and that we're not worried about these 2 losses. This is not what our team is."
Well, I'll push back just a little bit because we don't know how they felt about this team. Even if they've went on the whole streak and played so good, we still don't know. They could still be set back saying, "Hey, man, we're playing really great right now, but we're still shopping because we still need to take a next step." And if people want to reference Cuban's comments or what they're telling McMahon, all that, that's what you tell. But that's what
I do want to reference those.
But that's what else are you gonna say? Are you gonna say, "No, we're short. We're shopping, Jalen Brunson right now," and that's just you're gonna say everything that they said. So
no, you can say we have higher sights than this, right? We have higher sights than this, and we're not sure we're completely there yet.
Possibly.
Can you not say that?
I mean, I think there's a difference between saying I think a lot of people want to reference they're holding, they want to hold on to Dorian and Maxey and Brunson. They love these guys.
There's more factors of those 2 guys, but
yeah, well, it's I expect them to say all that. I think there's a difference of if we're sitting here on February 11th and they have the whole squad together, then we know exactly how they felt. Even though there could still be things that, fell through and all of that, but we don't know how they felt about the team. If we want to operate that way, I do think it could be, because I think it's more of this is how the fans have felt. I think we pose these open-ended questions sometimes, whether it's on Twitter through Locked On Mavs account or our personal Twitters, or even the other day I tweeted out, I was like, I just did 3 emojis. I'm like, how would you feel if they just walked out of these past few, these next few months with just Dragic out of a buyout? And so many people were replying, saying, "Oh, I want them to keep the team intact. Don't make any moves."
A lot of people do.
Exactly. But now how do these people feel? It's it's the swinging back and forth. And now my question, myself too, question for you. If they go out on Friday night, Philly comes to town. Philly's 7-3 over their last 10 games. Philly's 3rd in the East. They're right there fighting for the number 1 seed. If Philly comes to town and they beat Philly by 10 at home, did it fully swing back? You're like, keep the team together. That's it. This is the team I'm talking about. I don't know.
For me personally, you can't look at these individual games like this and make huge overarching decisions like that, right? It's gonna these games like this to me are confirming whatever biases you had before. If you're listening and you're a person that said, "Then you have to make a move. This team is not ready." All the people that comment in YouTube, if you're one of those that say this team has to make a move, they got to change something up, then these 2 losses confirm that more. If you say they just need to keep the team intact, this is a good team, this team that went on the win streak, you lose these 2 games, they just didn't take advantage of what was in front of them. They messed around and they didn't close, right? They didn't close again on this one, and it's fine. Missing Porzingis, you can make all those reasons and things, but for me, we've been saying the same problems about this team, right? The exact same problems for the last 3 years is they don't have a set number 2 option or a all-star number 2 option. They have borderline with Porzingis, and then they have now a little lower borderline with Brunson as far as those type of contributors. But the best teams in the NBA have the best player, they have the all-star player, and then they have the Porzingis, the Brunson, right? Instead of 2 of those guys. The Mavs still lack that number 2. And if you have a guy like that, especially if it would be a veteran like a Kyle Lowry or somebody like that the Mavs have gone after and have tried, then you probably don't lose games like this, right? And the season is different, and we feel differently about this team and their setup and all that. But
and that's not just us saying that, right? Like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of listeners have listened to Tim McMahon and Zach Lowe and some of these other people talk about the Mavs over the past week, and they're referencing the same thing. I mean, even to the extent of, Zach Lowe and them talking about how there's other GMs and stuff that thinks Dallas should sell high right now, get picks and draft, and cap space just to increase their likelihood to try to go and actually get that number 2 next to Luka, because Luka, KP's health and inconsistency and all of that. So that's that's been the question, and how they can pull that off, we don't know, but we'll see. I think you walk out of these 2 games, and if you love this trade season and you love the rumors and you have been, like you're happy for the Mavs over the past month, but you're like secretly on the inside, like, dang, are we just not going to be in rumors now? We're just going to stand pat because we're playing well and all this stuff. I think you're walking out of these 2 games like, man, anything's on the table, right? Like, whoa, what could happen?
The other problem with an in-season trade is that you can only trade for the guys that are being traded. You can only trade for the guys that are available, right? In the offseason, there's so many more options, right? If you go into, the Mavs go into the draft, they have their pick they can trade. They have future picks they can trade. You can package multiple picks together plus players to get guys around the draft, right? The trade deadline in season, you're so limited because so many teams are over the cap. Nobody can take cap. You have to match everything. There's just you're so much more limited in season to make a massive trade like that. And so I will give the front office a little bit of leeway, because you can't just go get somebody out of nowhere, right? You also are probably getting bid on, but there's so many other teams. Like I was seeing people talk about today that the Pelicans, the Kings, and the who was it? The Knicks or somebody are all going to be buyers in the trade deadline. Those teams are all out of the play-in. You're like, okay, well, if those teams are all buyers, then how many then ever
who is selling?
Who is selling, right? That's the problem with in-season trades. So we talk a lot about which players they could trade for. We talked about a couple of them yesterday, mostly role players, but there's not. You have to really catch lightning in a bottle to get the in-season Pau Gasol trade that the Lakers did in the late 2000s when it was Kobe, and then they got Pau Gasol, and that just changed their future. And that trade probably doesn't even work in the trade machine. It would probably be the jump
trade.
Yeah. So that's what this team is. And so you understand maybe if they don't make a move, because there may not be the best move available for them, but you gotta hit on one of these eventually. We were talking before we hit record, the Mavericks, they've taken a couple big swings. They've loaded up and taken a couple big swings at as secondary star. They tried with Porzingis. They got Porzingis. And so far, between injury and fit, coaching, there's so many different things you can point to, but that has not panned out as well as they would have hoped. And then they tried with the free agency to get Giannis, and that one didn't work. And they tried to get Kemba. Then they tried to get Kyle Lowry this past offseason. They've tried a couple of times to get these guys. They've just failed at it. And now some of these games like this are seeing the fruits of that a little bit.
100%.
That's the 10,000-foot view of this Mavs team, and we'll keep covering it from the 1-foot view. We got another game on Friday. We'll always have a post game for you on Locked On Mavs, so you can come back to us tomorrow. We'll have another conversation about the trade deadline, talk about possible trades, and talk about rumors across the league. We'll get into all that, guys. Thanks so much for listening to Locked On Mavs, making it your first listen. And now go listen to Locked On Bets. It's the best one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. All that stuff on BetOnline.net we talked about. Go check it out on Locked On Bets. Guys, thanks so much for listening to Locked On Labs. Thanks for listening to Locked On Mavs.
Peace out. Boom.
Boom.